At Lincoln High School, nestled in the heart of a bustling city, life moved at its usual pace. The hallways buzzed with chatter, lockers slammed shut, and students hurried to their next class. It was an ordinary school filled with ordinary moments, but sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the most unassuming places. And this story started with a single comment from someone who should have known better. Principal Gregory Thompson was a man loved by many but misunderstood by some. He had been leading Lincoln High for nearly a decade, and his leadership style was unique. Unlike other principals who kept their distance, Mr. Thompson believed in connecting with students through humor. Every morning, during announcements or assemblies, he would crack jokes, sometimes funny, sometimes awkward, that were meant to lighten the mood and make the students feel more comfortable around authority figures. While some appreciated his efforts, others found his attempts clumsy or even insensitive, but no one ever expected that one of his jokes would spark something unforgettable. One crisp autumn morning, the entire student body gathered in the auditorium for the annual introduction of new members joining various extracurricular programs. The stage lights shone brightly as teachers and club leaders took turns welcoming fresh faces to their teams. Among them was Marcus Johnson, a quiet sophomore who had recently joined the school band as a drummer. Marcus wasn't the type to seek attention. He preferred staying in the background, letting his talent speak for itself. But today, fate decided otherwise. As each new member stood to be acknowledged, Principal Thompson stepped forward to add his own flair to the introductions. When it came time to introduce Marcus, he paused dramatically, tapping the microphone to ensure everyone's focus was on him. With a grin, he said, "And here we have Marcus Johnson, our newest drummer." The audience clapped politely, but before they could settle back into silence, Thompson added, "You know what they say, black folks can play anything but classical instruments." A hush fell over the room as hundreds of eyes turned toward Marcus. Some students shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others exchanged nervous glances. Then, without missing a beat, Thompson continued, "How about picking up the flute next, Marcus?" The moment hung heavy in the air. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then, scattered laughter broke out among some students, though it sounded forced, almost hesitant. Others sat stone-faced, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. Marcus, standing near the edge of the stage, felt his cheeks grow warm. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he quickly masked his discomfort with a polite nod and a tight smile. Inside, however, he burned with embarrassment. Marcus wasn't naive. He knew stereotypes existed, and he'd heard similar comments before. But hearing them come from someone in a position of power, someone who was supposed to inspire and uplift, stung deeply. As the assembly ended and students filed out of the auditorium, whispers followed Marcus wherever he went. Some kids snickered openly, repeating the principal's words like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Others patted him on the back sympathetically, offering half-hearted reassurances. But none of it made Marcus feel any better. Later, that day sitting alone in the cafeteria with his headphones on, Marcus replayed the incident in his mind. Why did people think it was okay to joke about things like that? Did they really believe black people couldn't excel in certain areas? And why did the principal, a grown man responsible for shaping young minds, feel entitled to say such things in front of the whole school? These questions swirled in his head, leaving him frustrated and angry. But beneath the anger lay another emotion: determination. If the principal thought playing the flute was beyond someone like him, Marcus decided then and there to prove him wrong. That evening, when Marcus got home, he found his mother, Angela, cooking dinner in the kitchen. She noticed immediately that something was off. Usually cheerful and talkative, Marcus now seemed distant and withdrawn. Setting down her spatula, she asked gently, "What's going on, sweetheart? You've been quiet all evening." At first, Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to burden his mom with yet another example of how unfair the world could be. But seeing the concern in her eyes, he finally opened up. He told her everything: the principal's joke, the laughter, the way it made him feel small and invisible. Angela listened intently, her expression growing darker with each word. By the time Marcus finished, she looked both furious and heartbroken. After a long pause, Angela placed a hand on her son's shoulder and said firmly, "Don't let anyone put limits on you, Marcus. People will always try to box you in, tell you what you can and can't do based on the color of your skin. But you don't have to listen to them. Show them who you are. Prove them wrong." Her words struck a chord deep within Marcus. That night, unable to sleep, he pulled out his laptop and began researching famous flutists. To his surprise, he discovered countless musicians from diverse backgrounds who had mastered the instrument. There was Emmanuel Pahud, a renowned French flutist, Sir James Galway, an Irish legend, and even African-American artists like Nicole Mitchell, whose work blended jazz and classical music seamlessly. Each name fueled his resolve. If these individuals could rise above expectations, so could he. By the time dawn broke, Marcus had made up his mind. He wouldn't just learn to play the flute, he would become exceptional at it. This wasn't just about proving the principle wrong anymore. It was about challenging himself, breaking barriers, and showing the world that talent knows no boundaries. Little did he know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would change not only his life but also the lives of everyone at Lincoln High School. From that moment on, Marcus embarked on a journey that tested his patience, perseverance, and passion. What started as a hurtful joke would soon transform into a powerful statement, one that resonated far beyond the walls of his high school. The days following the assembly were heavy for Marcus. The weight of Principal Thompson's words lingered in his mind like a shadow he couldn't shake off. Every time he walked through the hallways, he felt eyes on him, some curious, some mocking, and others pitying. He tried to brush it off, reminding himself that high school was full of fleeting moments, but deep down, he knew this wasn't something he could easily forget. At home, Marcus found solace in his mother's unwavering support. Angela Johnson wasn't just a mom. She was a fighter. She had raised Marcus alone after his father passed away when he was only 6 years old. Life hadn't been easy for them, but Angela always taught her son to stand tall no matter what came his way. "Life will throw things at you," she often said, "but how you respond is what defines you." That evening, as they sat together, at the kitchen table, Angela could see the storm brewing inside Marcus. His usual bright eyes were clouded with frustration, and his shoulders slumped under an invisible burden. Sensing her son needed guidance, Angela leaned forward and spoke softly. "Marcus, I know today hurt, but let me tell you something. Pain can either break you or make you stronger. It's your choice." Her words struck a chord. Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing her advice. Still, he struggled to figure out how to channel his emotions into something productive. How could he turn humiliation into triumph? The idea seemed impossible, yet somewhere deep inside, a spark of determination began to flicker. Later that night, unable to sleep, Marcus lay awake staring at the ceiling. His thoughts raced between anger, embarrassment, and resolve. Finally, he decided to take control of the narrative. If Principal Thompson thought playing the flute was out of reach for someone like him, then Marcus would prove otherwise. Not because he wanted revenge, but because he refused to let anyone define his limits. The next morning, Marcus arrived at school with a new sense of purpose. During lunch, he approached Mr. Rivera, the music teacher who led the band. Mr. Rivera was a kind-hearted man in his late 40s with a passion for nurturing young talent. When Marcus asked if he could start learning the flute, Mr. Rivera looked surprised but quickly smiled warmly. "Of course, Marcus. I'm always happy to help students explore new instruments. Let's get started tomorrow during practice." Excited yet nervous, Marcus went home that afternoon and told his mom about his decision. Angela beamed with pride. "That's my boy," she said, giving him a tight hug. "You're not just learning an instrument, you're showing the world what you're made of." The following day, Marcus showed up to the band room early, clutching a borrowed flute. It felt foreign in his hands, lightweight and delicate compared to the sturdy drumsticks he was used to. Mr. Rivera greeted him with encouragement, explaining the basics of holding the flute, blowing air correctly, and producing clear notes. At first, Marcus struggled. The sounds coming out of the flute were squeaky and uneven, earning giggles from nearby students practicing their own instruments. Each failed attempt chipped away at his confidence, but he reminded himself why he had started this journey in the first place. Word spread quickly around school that Marcus was attempting to learn the flute. Some students admired his courage, while others mocked him mercilessly. In the cafeteria, a group of boys mimicked his awkward attempts at playing, laughing loudly enough for him to hear. "Stick to drums, Marcus," one of them called out, eliciting snickers from the rest. Marcus clenched his fists under the table, resisting the urge to lash out. Instead, he focused on his food, silently vowing to push harder. Despite the teasing, Marcus practiced relentlessly. Between classes, during study hall, and even late at night when the house was quiet, he dedicated every spare moment to mastering the flute. His fingers grew sore from pressing the keys, and his lips ached from forming the correct embouchure. Progress was slow, and there were moments when doubt crept in. Was he wasting his time? Could he really become good enough to silence his critics? One particularly tough afternoon, Marcus stormed into the band room after another frustrating practice session. He slammed the flute onto the chair and sank into a seat, burying his face in his hands. Just then, Jasmine Carter walked in, a senior violinist and one of the most talented musicians in the school. Jasmine had always been friendly toward Marcus. She noticed his distress immediately and sat down beside him. "Hey," she said gently. "What's going on?" Marcus hesitated, before admitting how hard he was finding it to improve. "I don't know if I can do this," he confessed, his voice tinged with defeat. "Everyone's laughing at me and I feel like I'm getting nowhere." Jasmine listened patiently, nodding as he spoke. Then, with a knowing smile, she said, "You think I got this good overnight? Trust me, I've had my fair share of bad days. There were times when I wanted to quit, when it felt like everyone was judging me, but look at me now." She gestured to her violin case. "Music isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. You've already taken the hardest step by starting. Keep going and you'll surprise yourself." Her words lifted a weight off Marcus's shoulders. For the first time since beginning his journey, he realized he wasn't alone. Jasmine offered to help him practice whenever she had free time, sharing tips and techniques that worked for her. Their sessions became a source of comfort for Marcus, a reminder that he had allies rooting for him. As weeks turned into months, Marcus's dedication began to pay off. The once squeaky notes transformed into smooth melodies, and his posture improved as he gained confidence. Though he still faced ridicule from some classmates, he learned to tune them out, focusing instead on the music flowing from his flute. Slowly but surely, he was proving to himself, and to anyone willing to listen, that he was capable of greatness. Meanwhile, whispers about Marcus's progress spread throughout the school. Some students were genuinely impressed by his perseverance, while others dismissed it as a phase he'd eventually grow tired of. Principal Thompson, however, remained oblivious. He occasionally overheard snippets of conversation about Marcus's flute playing but shrugged it off, assuming it was just idle gossip. After all, he hadn't expected his offhand comment to inspire such a dramatic response. But Marcus wasn't doing this for recognition, or to prove anything to Principal Thompson. He was doing it for himself. Each note he played was a testament to his strength, a declaration that he wouldn't let anyone dictate his potential. And as he stood on the brink of a major milestone, preparing to showcase his hard work to the entire school, Marcus felt a sense of pride he hadn't experienced before. This wasn't just about playing the flute anymore. It was about rising above adversity and inspiring others to believe in themselves too. Little did Marcus know, his journey was about to reach a turning point, one that would leave a lasting impact on everyone at Lincoln High School. As the weeks rolled by, Marcus's commitment to mastering the flute became a defining part of his daily routine. What had started as a quiet act of defiance quickly grew into something much bigger, a personal mission to challenge stereotypes and redefine what people thought he was capable of. Every morning he woke up an hour earlier than usual, slipping out of bed while the house was still cloaked in silence. With his flute in hand, he practiced softly in the living room, careful not to wake his mom. The early mornings were tough, especially when fatigue tugged at him, but Marcus reminded himself why he was doing this. Each note he played felt like a step closer to proving that limits were nothing more than illusions. At school, Marcus carried his flute everywhere, often sneaking in practice sessions during lunch breaks or free periods. He found quiet corners, in the library or empty classrooms where he could focus without distractions. The instrument itself began to feel less foreign in his hands. The smooth metal keys and cool surface against his fingertips became familiar companions. Yet progress wasn't linear. There were days when everything clicked. The notes flowed effortlessly, and he felt unstoppable. But there were also days when frustration bubbled over. High notes refused to come out clearly, his breath control faltered, and his fingers stumbled over complicated passages. Those were the moments when doubt crept back in, whispering cruel reminders of how far he still had to go. Despite the challenges, Marcus refused to give up. His determination caught the attention of those around him, though reactions varied widely. Some students admired his grit and offered words of encouragement. "You're really sticking with it, huh?" one classmate remarked during a rare moment of sincerity. Others, however, continued to mock him. In the cafeteria, a group of boys mimicked his struggles, puffing their cheeks and making exaggerated squeaky sounds to imitate his early attempts at playing. Marcus ignored them as best he could, focusing instead on the steady improvements he saw in himself. Each small victory, nailing a tricky scale, holding a long note without wavering, was fuel for his resolve. Mr. Rivera, the music teacher, noticed Marcus's relentless work ethic and decided to take a more active role in his training. During band practices, he pulled Marcus aside to provide personalized guidance. "You've got raw talent," Mr. Rivera told him one afternoon after a particularly grueling session. "But talent alone isn't enough. You need patience and persistence. Keep pushing, and you'll surprise yourself." These words stuck with Marcus, reinforcing the idea that growth came not from instant perfection but from consistent effort. Jasmine Carter also remained a steadfast supporter. She checked in regularly, offering advice and cheering him on whenever she saw him struggling. One day during a joint practice session, Jasmine suggested they play a duet together. "Let's try something simple," she said, pulling out her violin. "It'll help you get used to playing alongside another musician." They chose a short classical piece, and though Marcus stumbled at first, Jasmine patiently guided him through it. By the end of the session, they managed to create a harmonious blend of flute and violin. For the first time, Marcus felt like he was truly making music, not just producing sound. Meanwhile, whispers about Marcus's journey spread throughout the school. Students debated whether he would actually succeed or if he was setting himself up for failure. Teachers, too, began noticing the change in him. Mrs. Patel, the English teacher, mentioned to Mr. Rivera during lunch one day, "I've never seen Marcus so focused. Whatever he's doing, it's working wonders for his confidence." Even Principal Thompson heard snippets of these conversations, though he dismissed them as idle chatter. To him, Marcus's efforts were likely just a passing phase, an amusing anecdote rather than something worth serious consideration. As Marcus improved, he began envisioning a way to share his progress with the entire school. The idea of performing in front of everyone both thrilled and terrified him. He knew it would be the ultimate test of his hard work, but the thought of standing on stage, vulnerable and exposed, made his stomach churn. Still, he couldn't deny the growing desire to showcase what he had achieved. It wasn't about seeking applause or validation. It was about sending a message. If he could transform a hurtful joke into a triumphant performance, maybe others would see that they, too, could overcome obstacles placed in their path. With this goal in mind, Marcus approached Mr. Rivera one afternoon after band practice. "I want to perform at the spring concert," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside him. Mr. Rivera raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the request. The spring concert was the most prestigious event of the year, attended by parents, teachers, and community members. Only the best musicians were selected to perform solo pieces. "Are you sure you're ready for that kind of pressure?" Mr. Rivera asked cautiously. Marcus nodded firmly. I know I can do it. I've worked hard, and I want to show everyone what I'm capable of. Impressed by Marcus's conviction, Mr. Rivera agreed to support him. Together, they began selecting a piece that would highlight Marcus's strengths while challenging him to grow further. After much deliberation, they settled on Claude Bowling's Suite for flute and jazz piano, a lively and technically demanding composition that blended classical and jazz elements. It was ambitious, but Marcus welcomed the challenge. Practicing, the piece became his sole focus, consuming every spare moment he had. Word of Marcus's plan leaked out, sparking a mix of excitement and skepticism among the student body. Some classmates rallied behind him, genuinely rooting for his success. Others scoffed, convinced he was biting off more than he could chew. "He's going to embarrass himself," one boy muttered loudly in the hallway. Marcus overheard the comment but chose not to respond. Instead, he channeled his energy into perfecting his performance, letting his actions speak louder than any retort. Principal Thompson, hearing rumors of Marcus's upcoming performance, chuckled dismissively. "Well, I guess we'll see if my joke comes true," he remarked to another teacher during a staff meeting. Unbeknownst to him, his words only strengthened Marcus's resolve. The principal's lack of faith fueled Marcus's determination to deliver a flawless performance, one that would leave no room for doubt about his abilities. As the date of the spring concert drew nearer, Marcus threw himself into preparation with renewed intensity. He practiced late into the night, sometimes falling asleep with the flute still resting on his lap. His mother, Angela, watched with a mixture of pride and concern. "You're working so hard, sweetheart," she said one evening, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Just remember to take care of yourself, okay?" "I will, Mom," Marcus replied with a smile. "This is important to me." The anticipation surrounding the concert reached a fever pitch. Posters went up around the school announcing the lineup, and Marcus's name appeared prominently alongside the title of his chosen piece. Students buzzed with curiosity, wondering whether he would rise to the occasion or crumble under the pressure. For Marcus, the stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about proving Principal Thompson wrong anymore. It was about inspiring others to break free from the boxes society tried to place them in. On the eve of the concert, Marcus sat alone in his room, running through the piece one. Last time. The melody filled the air, each note resonating with clarity and emotion. As he played, he reflected on how far he'd come since that fateful assembly months ago. What had started as a painful joke had transformed into a journey of self-discovery and resilience. Tomorrow he would step onto the stage, not as the boy who had been mocked, but as the musician who had defied expectations. Little did Marcus know, his performance would not only change how others viewed him but also leave a lasting impact on the entire school. The night of the concert promised to be unforgettable, not just for Marcus, but for everyone who bore witness to his triumph. The days leading up to the spring concert were a whirlwind of nerves and anticipation for Marcus. The weight of what he was about to do pressed heavily on his shoulders, but it was a weight he willingly carried. He had spent months pouring his heart into mastering the flute, transforming frustration into determination and doubt into resilience. Now, with the big night just around the corner, every practice session felt like a final rehearsal for battle. One afternoon, as Marcus sat alone in the band room, exhaustion washed over him. His fingers ached from hours of pressing the keys, and his lungs burned from the constant breathing exercises required to sustain long notes. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to pause and reflect. Was all this effort worth it? Could he really pull off a flawless performance in front of hundreds of people? The doubts that had once plagued him began creeping back in, louder and more insistent than before. Just then, Jasmine Carter walked in. She was carrying her violin case, humming softly to herself, when she noticed Marcus slumped over in his chair. Setting her case down gently, she approached him with concern etched across her face. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside him. "You look like you're carrying the world on your back." Marcus hesitated, unsure how much to share. But something about Jasmine's calm demeanor made him open up. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "What if I mess up? What if everyone laughs at me again?" Jasmine listened intently, nodding, as if she understood exactly how he felt. Then, with a knowing smile, she said, "You think I got here without failing a million times? Trust me, Marcus, nobody starts out perfect. Remember when I first joined the orchestra? I played so badly during my audition that half the judges looked ready to walk out. But I didn't give up. Neither should you." Her words struck a chord, deep within Marcus. He realized that everyone faced moments of self-doubt, even someone as talented as Jasmine. Her vulnerability gave him strength, reminding him that setbacks were part of the journey. Still, the fear lingered. "It's not just about messing up," he confessed. "It's about proving that I'm more than what they think I am." Jasmine tilted her head thoughtfully. "Then let's make sure you show them who you really are. You've worked too hard to let fear stop you now." She suggested they run through his piece together one more time. Picking up her violin, she positioned herself next to Marcus and nodded encouragingly. "Ready?" As they began playing, Marcus focused on the music rather than his anxieties. Jasmine's rich, melodic tones blended seamlessly with the crisp notes of his flute, creating a harmony that filled the room. For those few minutes, everything else faded away: the teasing, the pressure, the lingering sting of Principal Thompson's joke. All that mattered was the music flowing between them. When they finished, Jasmine set her bow down and turned to Marcus with a grin. "See? That wasn't so bad, was it?" Marcus smiled faintly, feeling a glimmer of hope return. "Thanks, Jasmine. I needed that." "Anytime," she replied warmly. "And hey, tomorrow night, just remember, you're not doing this for anyone else. You're doing it for you." The morning of the concert arrived, bringing with it a mix of excitement and tension. Students buzzed about the event, speculating which performances would steal the show. Marcus tried to keep a low profile, avoiding conversations about the concert altogether. Instead, he focused on mentally preparing himself. During lunch, he found solace in an empty classroom, running scales quietly on his flute while visualizing the stage ahead. By late afternoon, the school auditorium was abuzz with activity. Crew members scurried around, adjusting lights and testing microphones. Parents and teachers filed in, taking their seats as the room slowly filled with murmurs of anticipation. Backstage, performers huddled together, some nervously pacing while others stretched or warmed up. Marcus stood near the wings, clutching his flute tightly. His palms were sweaty, and his heart raced like a drum roll. Mr. Rivera approached him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've got this, Marcus. Just breathe and focus on the music. Let it guide you." Marcus nodded, trying to steady his breathing. As the program began, he watched from the shadows as other students took the stage, one by one, each delivering their pieces with varying degrees of success. Applause erupted after every performance, but Marcus barely heard it. His mind was consumed with thoughts of his own turn. Finally, the MC announced his name. "Next, we have Marcus Johnson performing Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano by Claude Bowling." The crowd clapped politely, though Marcus could feel the undercurrent of curiosity rippling through the audience. Some students leaned forward in their seats, eager to see how this would unfold. Others exchanged skeptical glances, whispering bets on whether he'd succeed or fail. Principal Thompson sat near the front, arms crossed, wearing a smug grin that seemed to say, "Let's see where this goes." Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped onto the stage. The spotlight blinded him momentarily, and the sea of faces staring back made his stomach churn. For a split second, he considered turning around and walking off. But then he remembered why he was there. Not just to play the flute, but to prove to himself that he was capable of greatness. He raised the flute to his lips and began to play. At first, the notes were tentative, as if testing the waters. But as Marcus settled into the rhythm of the piece, his confidence grew. Each note rang out clear and precise, filling the auditorium with a melody that was both intricate and soulful. The audience, initially skeptical, gradually fell silent, captivated by the unexpected beauty of his performance. Even Principal Thompson's smirk softened into an expression of genuine surprise. Halfway through the piece, Marcus hit a particularly challenging passage, a rapid succession of high notes that required impeccable breath control. For a fleeting moment, panic threatened to creep in. But instead of faltering, he drew on every ounce of practice and perseverance he had cultivated over the past months. The notes flowed effortlessly, earning a collective gasp of admiration from the crowd. When the final note echoed through the auditorium, there was a brief pause, a moment of stunned silence before the room erupted into thunderous applause. People leapt to their feet, cheering wildly as Marcus lowered his flute and bowed deeply. His cheeks flushed with pride, but his eyes sparkled with triumph. He had done it. Against all odds, he had silenced the doubters and proven that he was far more than anyone had ever imagined. Backstage, Jasmine greeted him with a hug, tears glistening in her eyes. "You were incredible," she exclaimed. "I told you, you've got this." Even Mr. Rivera couldn't contain his excitement. "That was phenomenal, Marcus. You've made history tonight." As Marcus stepped outside the auditorium later that evening, he was greeted by a throng of classmates congratulating him. Some who had once mocked him now apologized sincerely, admitting they had underestimated him. Others simply marveled at his talent, vowing to never judge someone based on stereotypes again. But perhaps the most meaningful encounter came when Principal Thompson approached him. Looking genuinely remorseful, the principal extended his hand. "Marcus, I owe you an apology. My comment months ago was thoughtless, and I never imagined it would inspire such greatness. You've shown us all what true resilience looks like." Marcus accepted the apology graciously, explaining how the experience had taught him valuable lessons about perseverance and self-belief. Moved by Marcus's maturity, Principal Thompson invited him to speak at future assemblies about overcoming adversity, a proposal Marcus humbly agreed to consider. That night, as Marcus lay in bed replaying the events of the day, he realized something profound. The journey hadn't been about revenge or validation. It had been about proving to himself, and to everyone else, that labels and limitations were meaningless unless you chose to believe in them. And in doing so, he had inspired countless others to break free from their own boxes. Little did Marcus know, his story was only beginning. The impact of his performance would ripple far beyond Lincoln High School, leaving an indelible mark on everyone fortunate enough to witness it. The morning after the concert, Marcus woke up to a world that felt slightly different. The air seemed lighter, and for the first time in months, he didn't feel weighed down by the burden of proving himself. He had done it. He had taken a hurtful joke, turned it into fuel for his determination, and emerged victorious. But as he got ready for school, he realized that his performance had sparked something much bigger than personal triumph. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about what he represented. Walking through the hallways of Lincoln High, Marcus noticed a shift in how people interacted with him. Students who had once teased or ignored him now approached him with respect and admiration. Some even stopped him to congratulate him on his performance, their words filled with genuine appreciation. "That was amazing, Marcus," one girl said shyly. "I didn't know you could play like that." Others asked questions about the flute, curious to learn more about the instrument that had become central to his journey. For the first time, Marcus felt seen, not as a stereotype, but as an individual with talent and drive. But the change wasn't limited to his peers. Teachers also began treating him differently. Mr. Rivera, proud of his students' growth, invited Marcus to lead a workshop for younger students interested in music. Mrs. Patel, the English teacher, used his story as an example during class. Discussions about resilience and overcoming adversity. Even Principal Thompson, whose careless comment had started it all, made a point to acknowledge Marcus publicly during morning announcements. "Let's give another round of applause to Marcus Johnson," he said over the intercom, "for showing us all what hard work and perseverance can achieve." Despite the newfound attention, Marcus remained humble. He knew that his journey wasn't just about him. It was about breaking barriers and challenging perceptions. Inspired by this realization, he decided to use his platform to inspire others. During lunch breaks, he started mentoring younger students who were hesitant to pursue their passions. Whether it was helping a shy freshman join the drama club or encouraging a middle schooler to try out for the basketball team, Marcus became a role model for anyone struggling to find their place. Word of Marcus's transformation spread beyond the walls of Lincoln High. Local news outlets picked up his story, highlighting how a single insensitive remark had ignited a movement of self-discovery and empowerment. Reporters interviewed Marcus, asking him to share his experience and message with a wider audience. At first, he felt nervous about speaking on camera, but Jasmine reassured him. "Just be yourself," she said. "Your story is powerful because it's real." When the article came out, it resonated deeply with readers. Parents praised Marcus's resilience, educators discussed ways to foster inclusivity in schools, and students everywhere found inspiration in his courage to defy stereotypes. Social media buzzed with hashtags like "Play Your Song" and "Break the Box," as people shared their own stories of overcoming prejudice and pursuing dreams despite obstacles. Marcus couldn't believe the impact his journey had created. It was far greater than anything he could have imagined. Back at school, the ripple effect continued. Inspired by Marcus's success, the administration launched initiatives aimed at addressing racial bias and promoting diversity. A new program called Voices of Lincoln was introduced, giving students from underrepresented backgrounds a platform to share their experiences through art, music, and storytelling. Workshops on cultural sensitivity were held for both students and staff, fostering open conversations about privilege, stereotypes, and allyship. Even the curriculum underwent changes, incorporating literature and history from diverse perspectives to ensure every student felt represented. For Marcus, these developments were bittersweet. On one hand, he was proud to see his school taking meaningful steps toward inclusivity. On the other hand, he couldn't help but wonder why it had taken his struggle to spark such action. During a meeting with Principal Thompson, he voiced his thoughts candidly. "I'm glad things are changing," he said, "but I hope we don't wait for someone else to get hurt before we make progress again." Principal Thompson listened intently, nodding thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right, Marcus. Your story has been a wake-up call for all of us. We need to keep pushing forward, not just for today's students, but for future generations." As the school year drew to a close, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that fateful assembly. Months earlier, what had started as a painful joke had transformed into a catalyst for growth, not only for him but for everyone around him. His performance at the spring concert had silenced doubters and shattered stereotypes, but it was his unwavering commitment to excellence that truly left a lasting impression. During the end-of-year award ceremony, Marcus received 2 honors: Most Improved Musician and the newly established Trailblazer Award, which recognized students who inspired positive change within the school community. As he accepted the latter, the auditorium erupted into applause. Standing on stage, Marcus took a moment to scan the room, locking eyes with his mom, Jasmine, Mr. Rivera, and even Principal Thompson. Each face told a different story, but they all shared one common thread: gratitude. In his acceptance speech, Marcus spoke from the heart. "This award isn't just mine, it belongs to everyone who believed in me when I doubted myself. To my mom, who taught me to never give up. To Jasmine, who reminded me that failure is part of the process. To Mr. Rivera, who gave me the tools to succeed. And yes, even to Principal Thompson, whose words pushed me to prove them wrong. But most importantly, this award belongs to anyone who's ever been told they can't do something because of who they are. My message to you is simple. Don't let anyone define your potential. Play your song, no matter what anyone says." His words earned a standing ovation, leaving many in the audience wiping away tears. That night, as Marcus walked home under the glow of streetlights, he felt a profound sense of peace. He had started this journey to silence a hurtful comment, but along the way he had discovered something far more valuable: the power of resilience, representation, and unity. Years later, whenever alumni gathered to reminisce about their high school days, Marcus's name always came up. They remembered him not just as the boy who played the flute, but as the one who taught them to dream bigger, aim higher, and break free from the boxes society tried to put them in. For Marcus, the flute had become more than an instrument. It symbolized the strength to rise above prejudice and the ability to inspire others to do the same. And though Principal Thompson eventually retired, he often reflected on Marcus's impact, grateful for the lesson in humility and humanity. The joke that had once seemed harmless had ultimately led to a legacy of change, one that would continue to shape Lincoln High School for years to come.